In our last video, we explored how your brain creates reality through inherited patterns. Today, we're diving deep into perhaps the most challenging pattern to break, the victimhood mindset. Not because you're choosing to be a victim, but because your brain has literally been programmed to interpret every situation through the lens of victimization. Victimhood isn't a choice you consciously made. It's a survival mechanism your brain developed in response to genuine hurt, disappointment, or trauma. And here's what makes it even more profound. These patterns weren't just created by your experiences. They were actively installed by the people who raised you. Think about it. When you cried and your parents said life isn't fair, when your teacher implied you weren't good enough, when family members constantly talked about how people like us always struggle, they weren't just sharing observations, they were programming your neural pathways with their own victim patterns. Each time life confirmed this perspective, through rejection, failure, or mistreatment, your brain filed it as evidence. See, this proves we're victims. Not because it's true, but because that's the only framework your neural pathways were taught to process experience through. When someone tells you, choose to see yourself as empowered, it feels absolutely false. Your entire nervous system screams against it. Why? Because every cell in your body has been conditioned to interpret reality through victimhood. It's not just a thought pattern, it's your brain's fundamental operating system for processing reality. Think about this. When something good happens, your victim programming immediately finds the downside. A promotion? They'll expect too much from me now. A romantic interest? They'll probably hurt me like everyone else. A new opportunity? It won't work out anyway. These aren't conscious choices. They're automatic translations your brain makes before you're even aware of thinking. Here's where it gets fascinating. When you try to see situations differently, it feels like you're lying to yourself. If someone suggests maybe this challenge is actually an opportunity, your whole system rejects it as fake positive thinking. But here's the crucial insight. You're not actually lying to yourself. You're lying to the victimhood pattern you've mistaken for your identity. That resistance you feel isn't your truth protecting itself. It's your programmed victimhood fighting to stay alive. And of course it fights. It's been running your life so long that it feels like you. But you are not your patterns. That voice screaming, "This isn't true," isn't your authentic self. It's the collective voice of every limiting belief you've absorbed and identified with. Not because it actually matches your brain's established pattern recognition system, but because you're not aware that you are not the pattern itself. Let's look at a common scenario. Someone doesn't respond to your message. The victim pattern instantly generates thoughts like, "They're ignoring me," "I'm not important enough," or "everyone always dismisses me." Trying to think they might be busy feels fake because your neural pathways are literally incapable of processing that interpretation as valid. It's like trying to run new software on an ancient operating system. Your brain has spent years building evidence for the victim perspective. Every slight disappointment, every rejection, every moment of feeling unseen or unheard has been cataloged as proof. This isn't your fault, but here's the crucial truth. While you didn't choose this programming, you are 100% responsible for what you do with it now. Take a moment to really observe your life. See how every thought pattern you currently run leads directly to more disappointment, more rejection, more proof that you're powerless. This isn't random, it's your programming creating the exact reality it expects. Ask yourself, do you consciously choose to keep living this way? Because until you decide that this pattern of constant disappointment and failure must change, it will keep reproducing itself perfectly. And this isn't negative thinking, pessimism, or malicious prediction. It's simply the mechanical reality of neural pathways. Like water flowing downhill, your thoughts will automatically take their familiar route unless you consciously carve new channels. When you complain about always getting the same results, you're actually observing a system working exactly as designed. Your neural pathways simply have no other paths to follow. It's like driving the same route to work every day and expecting to arrive somewhere new. This isn't a moral failing or a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's just the natural, inevitable unfolding of taking the same mental pathway over and over. Understanding your patterns isn't about blame. It's about recognizing that every moment you stay unconscious of these programs is a moment you choose to let them run your life. True empowerment begins the second you say, I didn't install these patterns, but I'm completely responsible for transforming them. When you first try to see yourself as capable instead of helpless, it will feel like you're pretending. Your brain will produce what I call the yeah, right response, a flood of counterexamples proving why empowerment is impossible for you. This isn't only negativity, it's your neural wiring fighting to maintain its established worldview. Breaking free requires understanding that the fake feeling isn't a signal that new perspectives are wrong. It's proof that you're finally pushing against your programming. Every time you consider a non-victim interpretation of events, you're literally creating new neural pathways. Of course, it feels unnatural. You're building roads where none existed before. Consider this. If you've spent years viewing life through a red filter, suddenly trying to see other colors will feel wrong. Your brain will insist, but everything is red. This is exactly what happens when you try to shift from victimhood to empowerment. Your filter has been in place so long, you've forgotten it's a filter at all. Let's take another example. You don't get invited to a gathering. The victim pattern spins a story. I'm always left out. Nobody thinks about me. I don't belong anywhere. Trying to think, maybe I can create my own gatherings, feels absurd because your brain has no neural pathway for that possibility. It's not in your reality filters programming. This is why affirmations and positive thinking often fail. You can't override decades of neural programming with surface-level thoughts. Instead, start with tiny bridges your brain can actually accept. Instead of jumping from I'm a victim to I'm empowered, try sometimes things happen that I don't like. This isn't a huge leap, but it creates a tiny crack in the victim narrative. Your brain will fight these small shifts too. When you try to see yourself as having any power in a situation, your system will flood with evidence of times you were genuinely powerless. This is normal. You're not failing at positive thinking. You're encountering your brain's self-protection mechanism. The secret isn't forcing yourself to think differently. It's creating space around your current thoughts. When something triggers the victim response, pause and ask, is it possible there's another way to see this that I can't perceive yet? Don't try to find the answer. Just let the question exist alongside your current interpretation. Each time you make this space, you're teaching your nervous system that multiple interpretations can coexist. You don't have to immediately jump to empowerment. Simply acknowledging, this feels like victimhood because that's what my brain knows, starts loosening the pattern's grip. Remember, your victimhood pattern was installed by real experiences. It's not wrong or bad. It was your brain's way of making sense of genuine pain. Honoring this truth while gently exploring new possibilities is key. You're not denying your past hurt. You're expanding your capacity to perceive beyond it. Practice noticing victim language in your internal dialogue. This always happens to me. Nobody understands. Everything goes wrong. These aren't facts. They're interpretations your brain learned to make automatically. Each time you catch these thoughts, add a gentle, according to my current programming. Your brain will insist this is just more positive thinking nonsense. But that resistance is perfect. It shows you exactly where your programming ends and possibility begins. Instead of fighting the resistance, get curious about it. Notice how completely your system rejects new perspectives. This awareness itself starts creating change. The path forward isn't about forcing yourself to feel empowered, even though it might feel that way. It's about understanding that your current feelings are based on outdated programming. Let's take a common situation. I have no meaningful job. Your victim pattern immediately spins this into proof of unworthiness. I'll never find fulfilling work. Nothing ever works out for me. I'm stuck here forever. Instead of trying to jump straight to, I'm creating an amazing career, which your system will totally reject, break it down into tiny shifts that don't trigger massive resistance. First level, I have no meaningful job, yet. Just adding this tiny word creates a crack in the certainty of the victim pattern. Your brain might accept this because it's not denying the current situation, just introducing the possibility of change. Next level, I haven't found the right fit yet. Notice how this slight reframe acknowledges the current reality while shifting from passive victim to someone who's in the process of searching. It's not a huge leap, but it opens space for agency. Then, I'm learning what kind of work doesn't suit me. This takes what your victim pattern sees as failure and reframes it as data collection. Your brain might accept this because it's objectively true. Each unfulfilling job has taught you something. Moving forward, I'm becoming clearer about what I want. This builds on the previous reframe but shifts focus to growing self-knowledge rather than external circumstances. It's hard for your victim pattern to reject this because it's evidenced by your growing dissatisfaction with unfulfilling work. Next step, I could explore one small aspect of what meaningful work means to me. Notice this isn't claiming instant success. It's suggesting a single manageable action. Maybe it's taking one online course, having one conversation with someone in an interesting field, or spending 1 hour researching possibilities. Each time your victim pattern screams, "This is fake positive thinking," remind yourself, you're not denying your current reality. You're not pretending everything is perfect. You're simply creating tiny spaces between your circumstances and your interpretation of them. Each micro shift feels uncomfortable because you're literally rewiring neural pathways that have been running on autopilot for years. Remember, transformation isn't about dramatic breakthroughs. It's about these small moments of choosing differently. Every time you pause before automatically falling into victimhood, you're strengthening your ability to see beyond your programming. You're not erasing your past experiences or pretending they didn't shape you. Instead, you're slowly, steadily expanding your capacity to write new chapters of your story. The journey of breaking free from victimhood begins with this simple understanding. Your past programmed your patterns, but your present awareness can transform them. Each tiny shift, each moment of questioning your automatic interpretations creates ripples that gradually reshape your entire experience of life. Share this message if you're ready to understand your patterns differently. Subscribe for more insights into breaking free from limiting programs, and tell me below, what's one situation you're willing to pause and question today? Thank you for watching. This is Ayla, signing off.